Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I believe this is our third ambassador meeting, and I'm happy to see many of you here, some of you again. Glad to see many faces. As a reminder, please change your name tag to say what kind of organization you're here representing or where in the world you're from. Excellent. And just to give you an idea of what we'll be doing today. So today we're going to be talking with some of the innovators from the global collection that are dealing with climate resiliency. And this is a relatively new term that we might not all be familiar with. So I'll let you all know how we here at HundrED think about this term. And then I will turn it over to our three innovators who are going to share a bit more about how their innovations think about this topic. All right, there we go. So after that, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, and then we'll head into some breakout rooms to have some discussions. And finally, I have some homework for you all, as I try to leave you with every time. So as I said, we're talking about climate resilient education. And I think we all know what climate education might mean, but what does it mean when we add this word resilient into the middle of it? So this is a newer concept that doesn't really have a lot of traction yet, but we think that it's important. And it's something that we're going to be looking for more and more in the next global collection. And we define climate resilient education as something that combines teaching strategies, infrastructure, different curricula, all in a way to address climate challenges and to really make sure that learners and education systems are able to adapt and recover and contribute to long-term sustainability, especially in the face of climate emergencies. There are five main focus areas. So the first is climate literacy and practical skills, which is where students learn about climate science and solutions while also really exercising critical thinking skills. These are quite broad-based. So disaster preparedness, sustainable living practices, leadership, and community resilience. The second is resilient infrastructures and policies. So this is going to be about schools and learning environments being built to withstand extreme weather events, and also ones that integrate ecological practices and really try to bring nature into the learning environment as much as possible. Equity and inclusion is really important here. A lot of vulnerable populations, marginalized populations, such as indigenous communities, those that don't have access to a lot of money, are at higher risk from climate crises. So it should also speak to this in some way. The ways in which schools engage with local communities and also the ways in which communities engage with schools to co-develop solutions and to make education contextually relevant and impactful is really important here too. And finally, you will see through many of these that a lot of the idea here is to help equip young people with the tools that are required to become change agents. Maybe you all have heard the term climate anxiety happening around a little bit lately, or maybe some of you feel it yourselves or have students or young people in your lives that are struggling with it. So why does this matter? We have to adapt our education systems. So I am from Kentucky originally in the United States, and a couple of years ago, we have some valleys and mountains out in the eastern part of the state that were faced with tremendous flooding, and entire communities are currently being moved to be on top of these mountains. Part of why they are facing these things is because of old mining practices that cut off the tops of mountains. And so how do we adapt to the things that have already happened? How do we adapt to make sure that our communities are going to be able to keep moving forward? So resilient education in this way needs to be able to deal with disruptions like floods, heat waves, displacement. It's also important that students are educated about climate change so that they can take actions like reducing emissions or protecting ecosystems or innovating for sustainable living. And then finally, it's about socioeconomic stability too, right? We are living in this VUCA era, and so we want to try to at least have some stability as we go forward. So That's a little bit of information from the 100 side, but now I want to turn it over to our climate resilient innovations. And the first of those that we're going to be hearing from is Patio Vivo. So I will turn it over to Angela. Please go ahead.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for this invitation. I will present so I will share with you some slides. Um, mm, okay, can you see? Yes, thank you. So, my name is Angela Ibanez. Let me see the time. I come from Chile and I am a co founder of Patio Vivo, a nonprofit organization. And so in Patio Vivo, we work to promote that all children can learn, play, and grow in contact with nature. And to achieve this, we transform the school grounds um, that it's often hard, flat, and lifeless into a vibrant space with nature and diverse structure to promote that children can play and learn outdoors. In doing so, we help students to develop physical, social, and emotional skills, learning by doing and promoting while we are promoting climate resilience territories. Sorry for my English. I, I try to do my best. Um, and our approach to develop this learning landscape always consider the territory, culture, and community because each school is unique. The problem that we observed in the schools in Chile, it's for one side, it's school violence in Chile. 30% of our students say that they feel mistreated once a month. For other side, we have obesity problems. 50% of our students have overweight problems. We don't have a green space area. We only have 4.5 square meters of green areas per person, and the recommendation is 9 square meters. And for other side, in Latin America, we have a crisis of purpose of education. More than 20% of students say that they don't see the purpose of going to the school. So, what we see in this space in the school ground is a very hard space. We see an opportunity, a great opportunity to tackle these problems and promote well being in contact with nature. We see maybe the solution, not the completely solution, but nature can help to tackle these big problems. And it's in a way that, say, the concept of Malagusi, the space like a third teacher that can promote different action, but it's not only the space, it's to give a space to the nature can emerge in the cities. Uh, all the schools in Chile have a school grounds. And another thing that it's very important, all the schools have a team or the principal that is responsible for this space. This is very important for the continuity of this space. So, and another things that also for us, it's maybe the our motor things. It's we want to speak the language of the children, so we promote play. In this program, this is the most important thing. In other programs with adolescents, we promote take care of nature. But with the youngest, we try to develop this dialogue between nature and education through the play. The methodology consider a diagnosis of the school where we study the territory, we understand the community and the culture of the school. Then we design, also with sometimes with the students and sometimes with the school team. Uh, Almost in the Also we build the project and then we make an activation. The activation is for the adults, not for the children, but we need to promote the play in the adults. And this is very important because we have 10 years, we have almost 100 of projects through Chile, and always we work with the same methodology. For transform, no. But before, I want to please look the photo of the typical school ground with a concrete, and please reflect about what we are communicate to the children in this space. What we are telling about nature. What in what way we are showing that we trade the nature. Completely like us. Silence. And so for this, we take out all this concrete. It's a lot of concrete. And we make also a pavement, but using permeable pavement because we want the water can drain it. And we used to take out all of the water, and our naps are drying, and we need to drain out this water, rainwater, in this way regenerating the life in the soil. Excuse me. I need to. And also we use something that is very, very important. We use noble material from the territory to design the playground and the play structure. If we use plastic, that it's the easier way, and we are really communicate to the children the idea to use plastic. It's great, and because the children read the material through their sense, and this is very important to um, use the material that the territory gives us. For one side, to lower carbon footprint, but also for the temperature. The plastic is hyper high temperature, but it's for change the idea that we prefer easy things and plastic and continue contamination. We have to break this idea and return to the material that we used to use in the territories. Also, we planting plant and trees to regenerate the ecosystem, give shadow, lower the temperature, and clean the air pollution. Also, the sound pollution, for this is very important to plant trees. And in this way, we saw that the play in contact with nature and outdoor class began. It's like something you change the environment, and these things began to happen. And in this way, we are developing the scenario for physical and social emotional learning. And in this way, we are looking through the play, the students develop abilities for resilience, for adapt to different situations. We are focused in this 4 type of play: free play, risky play, active play, and play with nature. It's a little story about free play, and the excuse me, this school. When we finished this project, the principal told me that the children told that now I want to come to the school because we have a forest, and in the forest live little fox, and maybe a lion will eat these foxes, and we have to protect these foxes. All of this is an imaginary play, but it's very serious to the children. And also, this gives a sense of belonging to the school. For free play, they have to explore the environment, they have to create, to speak with the other, and create a play, and resolve the problem that happened in the place. So for us, it's very important to promote. And it's very difficult because to promote free play, you don't have to say play. You have to create a scenario for promote this. For other side, another play that we really uh, encourage in the school is a risky play. This type of play, it's completely disappear because the fear of the adults, but it's very important for promote the self-regulation. And if the students don't have this play in the schools, they will play outside. And this is a little more dangerous, not risky, dangerous. So through this play, like in the first photo, it's a big playground with 3 meters of altitude. The students learn to be brave, but also learn to take care of themselves. They are exploring their limits and building self-awareness. That it's very important because we need that the students uh, learn to say no. This is my limit. I don't want to go more. Other play that it's very important. It's a active play, like in the second photo. I love this photo, this moment, because through this play, the student strengthens this motor skill and a strong vestibular and proprioceptive system. But the most important is to recognize that the student have a body in motion. They have a body that it's growing, and now the system promotes a sedentary culture. All the students have to be quiet and in silence to learn, but this is completely opposite to the nature of the body of the children. And we want to recognize this and promote. And for the last is the play with nature. All this type of play it's combining, but this beautiful that play that is completely open-ended play that stimulate also the sensory integration. But I think the most important is nature help us to understand our place in the world. And this is about Patio Vivo and the learning landscape. It's how we teach to the student this what is their place in the world and how they can move and transform and regenerate the nature in the environment. I am on the time, so I will finish here. But this is our work.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll take time for some questions afterwards, but I want to make sure that we get over to George. So, George, if you would like to go ahead and share a bit about Rising Tide, please.
Yes, thank you. To just find the right version because we have so many iterations of this project already. Here we go. Yes. So, yeah, my name is Georg Hopmeyer, and I'm from a company called Causa Creations. We make serious games and documentary games about real-world issues, in particular migration, but also environmental issues like climate change. And this is a project called Rising Tide that we've been working on for quite a while, where you confront the climate crisis in form of a game and engage with different perspectives for real-world impact. So this project essentially came into existence because we witnessed a very particular issue regarding climate change, especially in Central Europe, that climate change is not present in the curricula of schools. It's sometimes kind of shoved into geography with very old-fashioned data, but there are no tools to actually teach about climate change. And most importantly, there are no tools to teach about the solutions regarding to climate change. And we had a framework at our disposal that we could adapt accordingly for multiplayer games. So we worked on a set solution, Rising Tide, to introduce a classroom-friendly game that would be designed to educate and raise awareness. This would be interactive, easy to use for teachers, also developed with teachers and students together, while requiring minimal preparation. You just dive right into it over the course of a classroom session. And since what it was already mentioned before, this was in particular designed also to combat climate change anxiety, which is a huge issue, also leading to all sorts of secondary issue like apathy towards the issue in general. So the game itself can also be considered a bit of a platform where people collaborate, discuss, and solve problems. It's not like one of these games, where you just click and there's decisions and then you get a solution, but you actually engage with it together in 3 different factions, usually 3 factions with a total of 6 to 12 players, and they navigate their planet's future via decisions that address climate-related challenges. There's business advocating incremental changes, science looking at green tech, and nature demanding immediate action. So this was like the abstraction that we could find from the much more complex image of society. And of course, they all have their own perspective, but they all share a common goal to create a habitable planet for our joint future. Now, in practicality, players just use mobile devices and or browsers that can also be used to explore the climate projects on the globe. And there's also disasters and urgent events that they have to then look at. And the teams make strategic decisions to manage resources in order to put them onto these events to mitigate them or take one decision or the other. And the goal, quite obviously, is to combat climate change, but also to avoid particular tipping points through these action plans that then are formulated together. So the gameplay also involves a lot of balancing your own faction and then also addressing global concerns. So it's a lot about finding compromises and communicating with each other. Something that we are not doing in the present day and age. It's actually about depolarization in an age of total polarization. And this can be quite interesting for the students to actually learn. And then the other thing that they also have is that they have to identify right solutions. So sometimes there are red herrings, bullet trains, vacuum trains that are, of course, might sound very futuristic, or weird forms of solar energy in outer space, or other mainly tech solutions that might require a lot of investment, but are not really very feasible and are possibly a false path. As for the educational design, this was quite interesting for us because we usually work more with NGOs and museums, and this time we had the educational content being developed with teachers and education experts. So there's a particular field of study for that in Austria right now. And from a climate perspective, we also had the climate NGO Global 2000 from the Friends of the Earth Network and their educators to ensure content quality, educational value, but of course, all the various facts. The game was also tested thoroughly over quite a long time in multiple schools, also different school levels and different social backgrounds to see how it would function, to really tune in for the particular final format, and also the age group, which was a big question. And the end result is currently made available throughout Austria via Global 2000. They use it in their classroom workshops, which is usually happening either when they go towards schools or in their hub in Vienna. So we are inside of the educational system right now and are currently looking to develop the project further. Yeah, and my presentation was rather short, and that's it already then. If you have any questions, please ask them now because I have to pick up my daughter because I kind of made a mistake regarding the time. If that's okay, Alex.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we can take a moment for some questions now. And also, if anybody has questions that come up later, you can leave them here, and I would be very happy to communicate them as well.
Thank you.
Jane, do you have a question now?
Yeah, thanks, George. I'm very excited about your creation.
Thank you.
As we're also in the school system, so I'm kind of wondering how the like the process to work with like the education department and those kind of like process goes with you for your country.
Disastrous, in one word. So it's very complex in Austria because everything works on a very individual basis for all schools, and this is not feasible. This is why in the DACH region, edtech companies are really struggling essentially to bring their experiences to schools. And if we develop something with very, very few exceptions, we actually try to sell it in Scandinavia, or we try to sell it in the UK, the Middle East, Far East Asia. It's because this huge fragmentation that essentially every school can buy their own software, so there's no decisions. What we usually do is that we work on a grant basis. So we get a grant, European Union, local grants. In that case, it was even a business grant. And then we find a partner that already has a program in schools,
Gotcha.
Global 2K, Global 2000 in this case, or we did a huge project with the UNHCR to deploy in numerous countries, and that takes care of that. But in terms of sales to schools, it's extremely difficult for us. It's not a good business case.
Thank you. I think I
Thank you.
share the same here. I know you have to go. Maybe I will reach out in your email here office.
Yeah.
Right. Leave on the screen, and then we are based in Canada. So
Yeah.
one organization in terms of the climate education, right now in North America is led by a association funded, I think, from the U.S. government, called Clean. So they're having like educational games for talking about climate change, basically. And I see the huge potential here. And
Yeah.
we even have a interest group. So I would love to kind of share this information with you if you like.
Yeah. No, that'd be lovely. No, I think there is a huge potential, and I think it's really like a systemic problem. We're usually going to bet. I don't know if anyone knows that.
Oh, bet.
This,
I,
yeah,
I know, but never go.
it's really worth it. And then, like when we went there a couple of times, we always had the same answers. Everyone goes like, educational technology is the future, but the future is not really starting. So that was really interesting. So when is the future finally starting? When schools are ready to start the future. And as I said, in some countries, Finland, Norway, they're really ahead. Korea, but in other countries, it's moving rather slow.
Wow, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will chat. I will follow up.
Yes. Yeah, George, if you'd like to share your email in the chat before you head out, I think that'd be great if you're happy to do that. Otherwise, as I said before, if you have more questions for him, please leave them here. We don't want him to be late for picking up his daughter. That feels always more important. All right. So our final innovator who is, thank you so much. Our final innovator who is presenting today is going to be Jane. So Jane, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Alice.
Mm.
So I'm just going to bring up my presentation. Let me see whether I can share. Really appreciate this opportunity to connect with the community. I feel the energy, even though just like George said, sometimes it is hard. But I feel like the people are doing environmental education is more based on their passion. So let me start. Let me know if you guys can see the slide. Sometimes there are some glitches.
We can see it.
Okay,
It's
great.
visible.
Yeah. So at Spring Bay Studio, we're really focusing on the the invisible part. We would like to use technology in a very responsible way. We like to use the technology to help future generation become green leaders. That is our mission for the business. So talking about that, I think I would like just to focus on our newest solution called the League for Green Leaders. This is a online gamified climate action competition for the children from grade 3 all the way to 12. I'm using the way we have here in North America. Basically, the children from mid of the elementary school all the way before their college. But this platform definitely have the potential to go over even into high school or adult training. So let me just kind of break it down. The program was built on 3 pillars. The first one is play to learn, because prior to this program, we also, just like George, we develop educational games. The thing we're focusing on at that moment was really trying to provide something that the children, it's hard to get outside. We respect their time to play outside with nature. We just want the technology to be used in a very thoughtful way. So some of the concrete concept, like the ecosystem, food webs, we want to highlight those invisible things or scientific concept. So we encourage the kids to build ecosystem because when they have a virtual system built in place, then really the other benefit of using game can shine, such as simulation, such as stories. So in the games, the kids will be able to build ecosystem and change the population of one species and see how the ecosystem react to that change. So those are the unique experience we think has the value brought by the technologies, but also, for the issues such as, sustainability, a lot of the time is a kind of like a man-made word, but it's very hard for students, especially for those lower grade, to have some hands-on experience. But when they have a game, we can provide a simulation of our mini planet in front of them, and then they can see the greenhouse gas around our climate in the atmosphere, and then can also interact and do experiment and simulate what happens if we all kind of like commit to sustainability. What happens if we don't? So they have the different scenarios in their mind. So kind of like a digital toy for them to kind of like to play around and learn. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is really, using the technology, we can encourage kids to play together. To play together is a really unique part in terms of the technology. So like instead of individual play, but we can invite children from everywhere around the world, as long as their school have, internet and computers, they will be able to use the browser to play. And just to accompany with that idea, we purposely designed the competition based on teams. So the children will be team up with their friends, with their classmates, and then they can do not only just the online part, like the playing the games, but they can also do real world project like making a solar oven, and then like a play through to win badges and point and progress through a game board. So we're more on the gamification on that side. The third pillar is really important, is that we want to give them a taste or a experience. It's a hands-on experience. What is sustainability looks like, feels like to them. We want to put them in that process so then they can experience that. So that's really is, the reason why we put in a core calculator for eco footprint. So the students will be able to record and track and give them something fun to compete for, is the who can save the most of the greenhouse gas savings. So that's really is the point for this. I think I will maybe use the rest of the time just to share where is my slide? Okay. I would like to share a very short kind of like feedback from a teacher, which come from the social study. It's another part that we did not expect.
I think what we're all learning as adults, and something that the students seem to intuitively know, is it's too late to take shortcuts on trying to fix climate change. There's going to be no shortcuts. You can't lie on your form, right? And it's not really about extra credit points. There's no extra credit. We're so far behind. We need to catch up. And so it wasn't important enough to get points but not actually recycle in that moment for that kid. And I thought, what a great thing that I could overhear, right? These kids so understanding that this is it might be a simulation or a gamified explanation, but the problem is real. And then the last thing that we loved as a class every day was pulling up the board and looking at the total amount CO2 saved, right? Just seeing that number go up through all of our little individual efforts was just, I don't know, it was inspiring. I can't explain it any other way. And so I just hope that if this message gets to other high school teachers, that this is not just for elementary and middle school kids, and high school students really do care about this. And I felt like it became a tool for the more committed students at this high school level to bug their friends who weren't previously as committed, to say, hey, no, see, this is telling you this is real and we can do things to help. And we might not fix it in this room, but we can help and we can spread awareness and have these little things add up.
So I will just stop there because of the time. But I feel like I really like to go back to Alfredo's point there. It's really, when we're talking about like climate resilience, is a global issue, and we need to unite as many people as possible to do this together. So I think, if the technology can be helpful, just like, everyone right now is using social media where it did not even exist, like we're in the traditional way. But think about the influence right now, like the social media can have. I'm not saying it's good or bad. What I'm saying is just an example of how technology can help us to reach to more people about this part on the climate education and the climate resilience. And then also as a kind of like a one way to pay my respect to Alfredo. Actually, he is from a school near LA and right now impacted by the wildfire. So my heartfelt appreciation to those teachers who really act in the front line and trying to help us and work with us to collaborate on the climate change. I hope that one day, all the different kind of tool can reach them, can help them on this very important issue. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you very much, Jane, for that really interesting information. So I do want to give everybody a chance to ask some questions directly to Jane or Angela. So if you have a question, you can either write it in the chat and I can read it out for you, or you can use the raise hand emoji. And if you have questions later, of course, you can send them to me directly. My email is alex.shapiro@HundrED.org. Yeah, so any questions that you all might have right now? Yes, Professor Penny.
That always sounds amusing to me. Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. I know some of you, but not all of you. I'm Penny Hay. I'm Professor of Imagination, actually, at Bath University, which is very Harry Potter. But yes, my question is based on my comment in the chat, actually. I'm a big fan of Rebecca Solnit's work, and she's written extensively over many years, her book Hope in the Dark, but also more recently about the importance of showing up, being connected and taking action together in the face of the climate emergency. And I suppose my question is, it's about that kind of that sense of a movement where, whether it's a group of young people, in our case in Bath UK, we have a group called the Young Green Creators, who have been part of our project Forest of Imagination over 12 years. So they've grown up with the forest, and they're now not only deeply connected, part of and as nature, but taking that social action. So my question is to all three of you, really, how do you kind of galvanize a group to, I think your recent reflection, Jane, maybe come to you first, but how do you galvanize a group to then take action and have agency themselves?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Penny. I think, we are really fortunate, I think, is for because of the technology, so can help us to make the climate action is not silo. It's not a silo project. It's not only me caring about this. It's about like the students, for example, for the past league competition, which was held at a time when the world have the COP29. So the kids know about this from the social media or like the media, whatever the coverage, but they also feel that they are doing their part and not only themselves, and they can see the students from the other part of, like, in that competition alone, we have students from different part of Canada, different part of the US, and then also a school in Laos. So they kind of like feel or experience that, or a collective experience. And that this is not like completely virtual. This is not completely virtual in the terms that the they are kind of discussing the like the solution. This is a part of it, but the other part is really a lot of the students are very happy to share. I want to be part of the solution. One of the feature we have in the competition was track your CO2 every day. This is voluntarily. You can do that, and there's some points, some badges, some gamification element to that. But the idea is, using technology, we would like to integrate what the students are doing in the real world into the virtual world. I think that's my personal view. Technology will never replace the nature, and it should not be, because the nature build everything. Our connection, our motivation, why we care, right? We definitely need that part. On the technology side, I think the promotion, or like the advantages, perhaps should be the right way for should be an effective way to help, to bring some help. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Yes. I don't know whether Angela wanted, but we should go to other questions as well. But Angela, did you want to respond from your point of view? I know we lost George, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Excuse me. I I have a thought that it's a little open, but for us that we work really with the hands-on and discovered the insect and really transforming the soil, I think the technology can help really to our students to understand the interconnection between the world, because for our students it's very isolated and all about technology, and I am like, I don't want to know because social media, and I really have fear about that. But when I listen the program of Spring Bay, I think maybe if our students connect with other students in other part of the world and began to understand the interconnection between, through the action that they make, for example, making compost with the other, they really feel the power that it will have. I think we need both, but it's so important, the hand experience, and also for understand. For me, the best the most important is to understand the place in the world when you play with a little ant and the children want to take care of this ant, and the butterfly comes and the birds, and they have real experience about that. I think this it's regenerate the ecosystem and also have a space connected with this. But for take care of this, I think it's important to understand the relation with the world.
Thank you.
I have two observations on that I'd love to add on if I can. So one of them is from our work that we do here at HundrED in our Youth Ambassador program. You asked about how we galvanize, right? And one of the things that we're really intentional with this is making sure that every step of it feels approachable, knowing that the impacts that can build up don't have to be something big and scary, but that it's something that you can do immediately within your own community, and that whatever idea you might have already has some value in it. The other thing is something that I noticed just by looking at the innovations that are in this year's global collection, and that word is joy. And I think that joy is so important in terms of combating this big, scary thing, right? So I think that both the competition, the game, what Patio Vivo does with these green spaces, all of them are ways that make tackling this something that kids, all of us, might look forward to doing, as opposed to something that we dread having to deal with. And so those are the two major themes that I see coming out of it. All right. So we have one more question here. I think we won't have time for breakout rooms today, but Miguel would like to know if gamification would be useful for different realities in the Amazon. And Miguel, would you like to ask this in person yourself? Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning from Peru. Yes, I am a founder of an organization called Arcabeta, and we focus to connect schools from different countries, developing countries and developed countries, like in school in Iquitos, Peru, and in Finland. We did this in 2021, 2022, 2023, and last year. So the Amazon rainforest has different reality for different factors, and we encourage to do actions with practical projects. For example, compost, like Angela comment, and we also motivate to learn about different realities. For example, in Switzerland and Norway, or in Finland, or in Canada too. So we want to motivate them that they need to do actions. It can be better because where they live, where what I saw and where I was, it has much pollution and footprint. So through education, I think it's important to motivate them to do something not typical. For example, like connect with one school from other country, and they use Google video calls, and they can interact, and they can learn from each other. For these projects, right now we have attention from local authorities, which is not easy here in Peru. But we are working on this in our small organization. I want to ask all of you, the technology can be also adaptable for different contexts, for example, in the Amazon rainforest, even when the language barrier. Okay, help me with that.
Maybe I can take this first. Happy to share. I think in my view, answer is yes. Technology is really kind of like depends on how you use it. If we use it for the advantage for communication and collaboration, like you, that's what I heard from you. I think it definitely can help. And I can show you an example. Like right now, we are supporting 4 teachers from 4 countries, and they're working on a project. And one of the teacher it's all about the environmental issue in their local communities. One of the teacher actually he teaches in a private school in Brazil, part of the Amazon forest, and they were developing some of the, I think it's called evaporation toilet in their community. And then another teacher who they started the collaboration first, he teaches in the US. And then they're using a lot of the technologies, like, for example, not sure whether you're familiar with Minecraft, like a very popular kids game, right? So the Minecraft for education. So they are developing their students in California actually are dive into this issue and think about the solutions, and build their solutions in California, but virtually, where the Brazil students are really build the real things. So like I think the example there is really because of the technology, because of like the Zoom calls, or like they connect through the League for Green Leaders competition. So they're I think in certain ways the technology help us to connect more and help us to understand more about what's happening in the other part of the world. Otherwise, they will not, kind of like connect with. And I'm very interested in your approach.
Thank you for the answer. Yes, and also in the Amazon rainforest is much limitation with internet connection, at least in Peru. It's a lot of limitation. But we believe in technology because we use it there also. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Angela, would you like to add anything else?
Yes, maybe. I am thinking in the pandemic when all our students it's the lockdown. We play a lot. We promote to continue the recess and to take care of the social connection between the students through technology, through Zoom, and it's incredible how they continue developing social emotional learnings through this. So I think it's a good tool, but the important is the way and the why you want to use this tool. But I saw how the student develop language, for example, and some social abilities through playing in Zoom. But it's playing with different things. It's like we develop some play with. They have to take different ropes, dresses, and so I think we need to rethink how we use technology, also for develop language and different things that not all it's so bad. Because yes, in my country, in the schools, it's no, if you use technology, it's like you are the evil. I don't know, but we need to create more open way. But please don't stop to play outside. This is very important because really we saw the health problem in the students for be all the day sit down and how you say the or concentrate. The teacher wants the student learn all sit down and in silence. And please, this is not the nature of the humans. So I want to promote an idea of education that is movement, but also with technology to take out of the classrooms. And I think the technology is really a very good partner to play outside, to learn outside, and also share things in the cell phone or I don't know with other. So I am very happy to be here to create this new road for the children.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you so much. Deki, if you've got a quick question.
Actually, not a question. I really enjoyed listening to all the presenters because it's quite interesting to learn many innovative ideas. I, being from Bhutan, I think we are around 60 to 70% already covered by the nature forest. So we are very fortunate. And I just would like to share one of my school practices, which I think some of you may enjoy to listen. So in my school, we have a culture of going in the nature 2 times in the year. That is for a week long, each week long. And it is mandatory that they have to connect to the nature. And then before they go in the nature, they make a plan what they do want to do, what they want to do in the nature. They have to manually cook food. They need to, really collect the available resources and manually cook food. And they also need to learn about different plants, flora, fauna. And then we expect them to actually they are sent in a smaller chunks, like 12 to 10 to 12 students, and they have to come back and make a presentation back in the school using the technology, whichever way they want to dramatize it, they want to make a video log, documentary, it's up to them. So they come back, and then for 10 minutes they actually create a lot of resources, and then children take in groups, take turns to present their findings from the nature. So as already Angelia said, that we believe in keeping students connected to nature, making them understand the reality. So that's what we do in the school. And when I listened to you all, I felt that okay, we are doing something which children are actually learning from the nature and bringing back, and then they are really understanding, and then from there they're building some projects. And some of the students, like especially senior students, they wanted to collaborate with the community. They proposed a project where they wanted to take care of a river, so they wanted to involve the community. So that's how we are actually approaching at the Royal Academy. So I don't know, it makes sense to you, but I enjoyed listening to all of your presentations. I also took note of all the links, and I would like to read more and learn from you all. Thank you.
So Risa, please.
Super. Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. So if we go to the next slide, I'll just give you a bit of context. So as Alex mentioned, I work for the Foundation for Environmental Education. We are a member-based umbrella organization. So we have headquarters in Copenhagen, Denmark, but we have over 100 member organizations running one or more of our 5 programs around the world. You might be familiar with Eco Schools, which is probably our biggest education brand, but we also have Learning About Ecosystems and Forests, which is an outdoor education focused program, and the Young Reporters for the Environment, which is about youth leadership and journalism. And more recently, we've been developing our Eco Campus, which is for the tertiary level students. And we also have Green Key and Blue Flag, which are two tourism-based organizations. So that's just a little bit of context. And on the next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Global Action Days, which is an annual campaign that FEE has been running for over 10 years, always with an environmental education focus, primarily for our education network. In 2025, this year, our theme is ecosystem restoration. Every year it's a slightly different one. Last year it was more general climate action. This year we're focusing on ecosystem restoration as part of our work with the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And the idea is that from April 22nd to the 6th of May, 2 weeks, there will be 5 activities that we encourage participants to do, that allows them to explore in hands-on ways wherever they are in the world, whatever age, the different aspects of ecosystem restoration. So some examples, we have a soil safari, so participants will be getting outside and exploring their soil and worms. And then we're also focusing on bioeconomy, from a more intergenerational perspective. So having young people connect with elders in their community to understand how things kind of historically have changed. This year's theme is perhaps highly relevant because, as you know, with fires, with floods, with deforestation, with drought, all of this happening, I think there's a big push to get ecosystems back into the focus, and that through ecosystem restoration, you can develop a lot of skills and knowledge of how our environment works and our roles within that. If we go to the next slide. So the Global Action Days, as I said, it's open for everyone. Last year we had over 450,000 participants from around the world. This year we're aiming for 1 million. And this is really from all ages, kindergartens, secondary schools, universities. We also have other types of institutions join, hotels and such from our network. And the aim is really to give educators and schools like resources and the inspiration to maybe do something a little different from their normal curriculum, and get outside and do some hands-on activities and participate in more in climate action and environmental education through this like 2-week global campaign. Next slide, please. And we were asked to touch a bit upon how through the Global Action Days, participants and young people are developing different types of skills. So each activity has different elements to it, but I think self-awareness and understanding their role within ecosystem restoration and the environment is a big one. So we have, for example, the soil safari, as I mentioned, where students actually get outside and get their hands dirty and learn about, you know, their position and the environment that is around them. And there's self-management, and we encourage everyone to do all 5 activities. So it is really 2 weeks of action happening, with the last activity this year being a celebration of sorts. So for schools and students that participate in the whole 2 weeks, it is, you know, a very hands-on experiential learning. And depending on the age, of course, there's a lot of like independence and agency for participant students. There's also the decision making. I think we're really trying to encourage activities where the young people can, you know, take the initiative and also be leaders and step up and connect with others in their community and in their school. And so that through the activities, they're also able to make more sustainable decisions going forward. There's also social awareness through different activities that we've got going on, understanding both like the role of the environment and also what we can do in case of, you know, different events. And as I mentioned before, there's a big community element to Global Action Days, which we see through community building. So it's not only like students within their classrooms and their schools, but also we encourage like social media sharing. We have a Facebook group for educators, and we want to encourage Global Action Days to be a annual event for all the participants, so that each year you come back to this global community, which leads us to the next slide. With the core of Global Action Days, I believe, is that it is a global movement for a global community. As I mentioned, you know, we have over 100 members around the world. That's thousands and thousands of students and teachers and schools in our network. And I think really the strength of a global program like EcoSchools, LEAF, or YRE, and participating in a annual campaign like Global Action Days is that you're not only getting the chance to connect with other schools, other teachers, and seeing that like your actions are part of a bigger movement, but also from the position of us being an international organization, is that we're also connecting Global Action Days to other ongoing global initiatives that are being led by, you know, partners such as UNESCO or UNEP. So in this case, it is the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, but it also contributes to the Greening Education Partnership. So we really hope that in Global Action Days, they feel that they are part of a bigger worldwide campaign. I encourage like to share what they're doing through various channels. And with that, we can go to the next slide. So if you are interested in joining, we would love to have you. Scan that QR code. I'll also put it in the chat, a link to register. And also you're more than welcome to join our Facebook group, where we have a bunch of other educators who throughout the year actually share a lot of their environmental education activities. So that's always a really nice and inspiring network to have. So that is all.
All right, Riza, thank you so much. And I wanted to give us a chance to ask some questions that pop up about Global Action Days. So if you're happy to answer those, I'm wondering if Kirti or Lotte, you all have any questions about this. I know that for me, My initial question is, when you have such a big, wide-ranging program, right, like globally, how are some of the ways in which you or in which Fee thinks about targeting to different natural environments? Are these global action days things already so broad-based in how they go, or do you have ways in which you target it for age ranges, for cultures, for different places?
I think it's a very good question, both in terms of like impact, but also logistics. When I'm in the planning phase right now. So we do really try and make activities simple and broad enough so that anyone can pick them up. We know that there are different levels of know-how, confidence, interest, time, resources across the world. So we keep the activities quite simple. We've had critiques that they're not challenging enough, but we do try and then differentiate them for different age groups, different ability levels. Want to do an activity, we are more than welcome to. Every year we also have an activity guide that we develop to go alongside the activities, and there this year we've created just simple, 4 steps about per activity, how to do it. But then if you're interested, we've given a bunch of bonus activities that can be done during rounds, and those have also been differentiated by age. So really try and make it as flexible as possible to just encourage everyone to join and not feel like they can't participate.
Yeah, okay. That's here we're always thinking about this. We have a question in the chat. Kirti asks, I wanted to know if you could share resources that can be accessed to develop climate curricula.
Maybe not specifically for Global Action Days necessarily, but through the Eco Schools program, through LEAF, through YRE, we've developed lots of resources, educational materials, lesson plans, guides. The Eco Schools program specifically, it's built on a step framework, and one of those is curriculum linkages. So there is like a very strong of resources and activities connecting to the curriculum. We also have an academy where we have several courses for educators interested in environmental education, sustainability education as well. So I'll just pop the link for that in the chat as well.
It's still, after all this time, we forget to unmute ourselves sometimes. I'm going to add some links into the chat for you as well, Kirti, both for LEAF and for Global Action Days, to make that a little bit easier. There's a question from Lottie, general wondering about how you support or think about the SEL aspects of dealing with climate, as it can be a topic that is very emotional for both students and staff. Risa is on the train right now, so she might be breaking. No worries.
Can you hear me? I think it's a really great question. We try and include elements of reflection in the activities, and I think perhaps the core of our activities is that by taking action and actually doing something about it, this can help ease some of the more negative emotions that young people and learners are experiencing around climate change. I think I strongly believe that by getting outside and connecting with nature, this can help with the anxiety. And then we do have a few resources that are specifically targeted to mindfulness and climate anxiety and all of that. But I do think that, being part of a network and realizing that as a young person, you're joining other young people around the world, I think that is a pretty powerful feeling and can help with some of the anxiety.
And Riza was also wondering, do you, so are these materials or these resources specifically to be used like with schools or by teachers, like guided by teachers, or can students themselves or like young people like themselves like access them and implement them in their own time, like informally?
I think probably the main target audience is educators and schools. That being said, like the resources are all freely available on our website. And Global Action Days, we do say, you know, you can do it by yourself, you can do it with your family, you can do it with your school, your colleagues, any context really. So it is simple enough that a young person could also pick it up. If we're thinking more specifically like what are resources for young people, that then I would guide you more towards the Young Reporters for the Environment program, because that is really like having young people as leaders and them being the main target with resources that they.
Okay, and that's also part of your innovation, that young leaders for the environment, or what was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Young Reporters for the Environment, and we have schools, and then we have LEAF, and all of those programs run parallel. Some schools do all three, some schools only do one of them, but yeah, those are all different ways to kind of engage. There is for young people, Eco Schools is really takes on the whole school approach, and LEAF is more leaning towards outdoor education and getting teachers comfortable.
All right, I have, so, oh, we've got another question here. Do you integrate art into the climate curriculum? And if yes, could you share an example or two on how?
Yeah, nice question. I also see your name, Saturday art class. I think sometimes we forget about art, to be honest, but this year we were also very intentional in that we wanted to have some type of creative activity involved, which we then decided to do through photography, because this also links quite closely to the Young Reporters for the Environment program. So in this year's Global Action Days, activity 4, I believe, is nature's point of view. And so we're asking participants to take photos from the perspective of a bug or a tree, and use these kind of point of view photographs to kind of describe and point out environmental challenges or topics. So that's one example that I can think of off the top of my head.
All right. Yes, nature's point of view sounds really interesting. And I'm already wondering how you all, so you mentioned earlier that you're hoping for 1 million participants this year, which is a huge ambitious goal, and I think that's wonderful. So my first thought is, how are you going to show 1 million photos? Like, that would be really cool if you could have them and be able to display these in some way. So is there a takeaway section from Global Action Days that is then kind of reported out to the world? How do you handle that, like, kind of reflective or post days piece?
Yeah, we do always have, you know, an impact report, and we try. I mean, 1 million pictures is a lot, so it's a lot for us to also go through and process. But we do try and highlight activities on social media. In the end, it is a large part of it is on social media, the tools that connect us all. So we do highlight some of the best photos and activities from around the world through different posts and such. But I think that also goes back to our Facebook group, where we have, well, I think we have over 5,000 people in that group, and it is primarily educators from all over around the world. So in that space, everyone can see what everyone else is doing, and it is a really nice way to get inspiration and to get encouragement, and it's just like a really positive environment to see, you know, what others are doing.
Yeah, that's great. And then my final question is, how do you track how many people are taking part? How do you do that kind of monitoring?
Yeah, another logistics operations question. We do ask everyone to register.
Mm.
So that's on our own like internal platform. And then obviously we're not asking 5-year-olds from kindergartens to register individually. So we rely on the numbers given to us by teachers. So if they say they have a class of 15, we count 15 people. If they tell us how many people they expect to have participate in the Global Action Days events that they're running in their schools. So that's how we do the numbers.
All right, great. I think we're going to move on to our group discussion questions, unless we have any more ones that are just specific for Riza or for Fee. All right, that looks all right. So then I have a couple of discussion questions for us to all tackle together. And I think it would be really great to hear from our ambassadors here. So maybe let's think, so Lottie, it sounds like maybe you're a teacher. Kirti, it sounds like you have your own education program specifically around art. So I would love to know your all's thoughts on how schools and communities can work together to make education systems more climate resilient. And of course, Riza and Ana Paula, if you have thoughts on this too, I'd love to hear them.
Oops, Alex, do you mean the education systems themselves climate resilient, or do you mean sorry, I'm not sure I understand the first question. Do you mean in terms of climate education, or do you mean actually being more resilient to climate change?
Well, climate resilience is such a broad topic, right? So it could include either integrating more climate resilient knowledge into the curriculum or building out schools. So if we want to think of it in terms of the environment, the actual physical learning environment, we could address it from that angle for sure. So yeah, let's think about that, right? I think my first thought there is always about funding and money and how that comes in. But there's also aspects about what should that look like? What do schools need to know? And what do communities need to know about how schools work, for example? So from inside of a school to promulgate that information out, what kinds of information needs to be known? What do we need to think about?
Yeah, I'm not in a school at the moment. I work at an education company, and I've done a lot of work with schools around change making. So young people taking action on a variety of issues, and some of those are sustainability. So yeah, community connections, working together in partnership. But the knowledge piece is really important, like having the climate literacy first. And a lot of teachers feel that's why I was asking about the emotions, because they feel very disempowered. And very not disempowered, they feel unsure on how to talk about climate change because it is a big and scary topic. So there's a lot to be done in terms of capacity, building capacity within schools. But then I think there's just so much that can be done within schools around just like building garden beds and things that the school has actually the funding there to do. It's just about sort of strengthening and working with the students and the parents and the community themselves to make this school more climate resilient hubs. And then of course, as you're developing these things within the schools, then you're of course building that climate literacy. So it's basically a feedback loop that sort of is continually strengthening each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered the question.
I don't think there's any one answer per se. Have you worked on these topics with these schools before? And you said that you were doing a lot of work with students and empowering students as change makers. So that's kind of the second question we have here. So maybe we can integrate that in. And I think this is also working exactly with what Riza's organization does in terms of empowering youth. So what are the ways in which students actually can affect change on their own? And Ana Paula, you also have a lot of insights here too. So maybe Ana Paula, you can talk about what some of the youth ambassadors are doing in this regard, because lots of them are taking climate action as their target, right?
Yes. Just as a background for the other, so I created the Youth Ambassador program, and sounds Lottie that there might be a lot in common in what we do, because what we do with youth ambassadors is that they well, many of them or all of them are interested in change making, and many of them create actual like social impact projects to create some sort of change in their communities. And for the last couple of years, climate action has been one of the most important topics that they focus on, and sustainability, life on land, life on below water. And I think that they really see themselves as not like not as passive recipients of like ideas of like that maybe adults are giving them, but as like actively like active agents of change, of discussions, and like really creating like trying to build a conversation around climate. And I think that the concept of climate resilience, it's something that maybe different people might understand differently. But I think that because maybe we think very often of it as like, how do we prevent or how can we stop climate change from going further? But with climate resilience, something that they have said is that, well, maybe like, yes, adapting to hybrid school models, or then how to have like, for example, some of them have said like, oh, this week I haven't had school, so it's good that I get to participate in the youth ambassador program. But I still think that the climate resilience aspect is very new, because it's while we are trying to protect the environment and prevent the climate change from going from worsening, it's still like adapting to what we have. But yes, they are, at least like what I see is that giving them the space and being like transparent with what the situation is, and giving them tools like what FE is doing is really important, because then they really embrace it, and when they see as well themselves, like we trust them to take action. I think that's the most important thing.
I want to ask a question that I think maybe all of you can respond to, which is so unapologists got at this idea that maybe this aspect of climate resilience is new and they aren't yet ready to figure out how to take action. And so how do you help usher young people from knowledge, from exposure about climate change and climate resilience and these kinds of challenges? How do you help them then take that step into action and to making changes within their own communities? Is it enough to just say that there are things you can do, or do we need to further scaffold that and structure that to help them move on? And what are some ways in which that can happen if it's required?
I can jump in just maybe more on my personal thoughts here. I do think that teacher training is a huge part of this, and making sure and supporting teachers and getting them to a place where they feel confident enough to talk about climate change, climate resilience, eco-anxiety, and actually do environmental education. This is a challenge that we've seen a lot throughout our programs, that usually, for example, an eco school, it's one teacher who's really passionate about the environment and is pushing this kind of sustainability mindset and environmental education throughout the school, which it's incredible. It's usually women, but it also relies on one person to kind of do the work and make things happen. And I think what we're realizing is that a lot of teachers, they don't receive the training. They don't feel confident. They don't know how to go outside, with 26-year-olds and make sure that no one gets hurt and has fun and learns, and to fit that into like a very packed curriculum and testing and all of this. I think that's a huge challenge. So I think, of course, students themselves they have to play a role. They are part of, you know, building climate resiliency, but the earlier it starts, the better, and then that's when you really need education and have the knowledge and skills as well. So I think teacher training and improving that would be, I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah, and I think just to echo what you said, I recently helped prepare a piece where we were discussing with 3 teachers throughout New Zealand that are trying to do different kinds of outdoor activities. So one teacher who takes her students to the beach like 2 or 3 times a week, another one who takes her students to the bush every couple of months. And it was exactly that story of a lot of anxiety about, how do I do this? Will I get pushback from my community? Is my administration going to support me? And yeah, as Lottie is saying, a lot of them might have climate anxiety issues themselves. And so I think a lot of what we need to do is help these teachers understand that they will have support if they take this kind of bold step. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of political movements that are pushing back against these kinds of environmental awareness issues, you know, that are really taking kind of a denial or even a negation approach. And so how do we answer to this kind of thing? Yeah, active hope is really important, making sure that people are looking at things both globally and locally, for sure. So I wonder, Lottie, when you were talking about teachers, or when you're thinking about teachers, and how does your organization help support them in that training piece?
Yeah, so we go through a series of steps, which we basically, it's head, heart, and hands. So we, you know, how do we connect? What you were saying is like, is it enough? Because there's a lot of data and facts out there about climate anxiety, but and that gets talked about a lot, but people don't talk about the emotions. So, you know, what do you see around you? You know, how would you like to make your world a better place through a sustainability lens, or through, you know, a climate lens, or it could be through a DEI lens. And then, yeah, really kind of, I mean, imagination activism is a really great activity as well. Imagining better futures. If you can imagine it, you know, we can build it. And then linking in through to things like the SDGs, the IDGs, active hope, you know, builds from, you know, Dr. Jane Goodall talks about active hope is not sitting around hoping, it's doing something, which is your change making. So helping young people understand what those skills are, and then getting them to actually step off the ledge and practice those skills as well, because it's, you know, so many education systems are not built to facilitate this kind of teaching and learning, right? It's real world learning, and so there's not space in the curriculum for it. So yeah, it's a tricky space. I think that's the other thing with educators we haven't brought up in this conversation as well, of course, is finding the space in the curriculum. You know, young people come in with it, and teachers want to cover it, and sustainability is there in the curriculum, but yeah, it's tricky. But yeah, systems thinking is another really important tool as well. Systems thinking, understanding the interconnectedness, that we are nature. You know, when we go, you know, our brains are currently 0.5% plastic, right? At the moment, terrifying. So if we understand we are nature, if we cut down all the trees, we have no air to breathe. You know, it's really understanding those interconnected and interdependent relationships, and then using systems thinking for problem solving. So yeah, going through, you know, those stages with young people, but really just being very positive with them and saying, hey, you know, you can do this, you can make change. It's not the famous change makers out there. Everybody can be a change maker. You can start. I always share change maker stories with young people, and I start with like 7-year-old kids who've made positive changes in their community. They're not famous, but it's really important that they see, you know, you can't be what you can't see. So I think that's another important part of this piece as well in schools, is showing young people that there are people from, if you're a Kenyan teacher, there are young Kenyan kids taking action. There's young Australian kids, Kiwi kids taking action. That's another one as well.
Yeah, that's really excellent. And that leads me to our last big question that I think we have time for right now, which is, what is one bold or creative idea that you have for making education systems more climate resilient? And again, that can be speaking to any part of that big concept. Go ahead, Anna Paula.
Okay, you know, I wanted to say something. Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying this conversation, and Lottie, what you said, like it's really, really on point. And I think that something that I personally sometimes like struggle with when talking about climate change, climate action, and or resilience with schools is that very often we don't talk about like all of the other things that are also related to the climate, such as inequality, power relations, global south relations. And I think that we need to also talk about all of these other aspects of of the SDGs or like inequality or disparities in order to actually address climate resilience fully, because we cannot only focus on environmental projects if in the end there's other aspects that are not being addressed. And I think that that conversation is important to have as well with young people and with kids as well, obviously according to their own level, because that's also like part of the transparency and about like connecting the dots into which like why are certain areas more affected than others, why are some people more affected than others, or like who are taking the decisions on the use of fossil fuels or so on. So I think that these are the things that we need to talk about with kids and young people as well.
Any other big ideas to get out there? I know there's already so many of them. I think I one thing that I keep coming back to is, you know, as a kid, I was really lucky to live next to a forest and a stream and to take part in scouts a lot. But I didn't love it because I hated being uncomfortable. And these days, I'm actually much more comfortable being uncomfortable, right? But I think that's one of the things that we have to remember is that like nature is something that we are part of. The climate is something that we're part of, but it doesn't care about our feelings. It can't, right? Like we need to care about it, and it will help us feel better in the end. But in the meantime, you have to find some way to be okay with the fact that you can't control it. It can't be controlled. It's something that is so much bigger. And so I think that activities that somehow help us come to terms with that kind of almost existential nature of it, right? It's so big. Yeah, humans love to control things. And I think if we think about modern life, one of the things that scares us is that there's this thing that we can't control that also can really affect us in big ways, and it's almost getting, you know, angrier in some way. And so I think that exercises, activities that help us kind of find that kind of peace, that letting go, almost a zen about it, maybe those are the kinds of things I would like to see a little bit more of. All right, I'm going to give you a last chance if you have something to share. And if it's not, that's all right. We can wrap up for today. All right. With that, thank you so much. Those were really valuable insights, and I'm really happy to hear them. And that is the whole point of these meetings, is that we can kind of share back and forth in this way. So just a couple last notes to share with you all before we wrap up for today. A reminder that the Global Collection for 2025 has been published, and I highly encourage you to look through all of the innovations in there. We were only able to hear from some of our climate-related innovations today, but we have many more. And actually, this climate resilience is going to continue to be a big theme that we're looking for going forward. So your homework going forward, if you choose to accept it, is to think of an innovation that is dealing in climate resilience and this kind of sustainability, and let us know about it. So you can send an email either to the email I sent you before, or here, community@HundrED.org. I want to thank everybody, especially our presenters, but each and every one of you who joined us today for taking the time. It's been a real pleasure. And I will see you all next time.